With Team of the Season just around the corner, if you guys need FIFA 23 coins, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 5% discount. So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, I've got some custom tactics and player instructions for my favorite aggressive formation that I use when I need to score goals. So this will often be used when I'm losing with a few minutes to go, or if I just feel like playing extra aggressive. So this is for the 4-3-1-2, and just before we get into the video guys, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up, as that does really help me out. Sub to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you do get notified when a video is posted. With all that aside guys, let's get right into today's video. Okay guys, so starting off with the custom tactics, for the defensive style I actually use press after possession loss. Now this is the only formation which I actually use this setting with, and the reason we use press after possession loss is because when we lose the ball, it means we're going to apply pressure for approximately 7 seconds to try and win that ball back. This means if we're successful, we're able to keep on the pressure on our opponent and keep creating chances. If this doesn't work after 7 seconds though, our team will stop pressing so our players can get back into the correct shape. So although we want to be super aggressive, I still suggest press after possession loss over something like constant pressure. Otherwise your players are just going to be super knackered and then you're going to get cut apart after a while. Now moving on to the defensive width, I like to have this on 40. This is so we can primarily block the attacks through the middle, so we are as defensively solid in the narrow areas as possible, but at the same time we still have that natural width, so we're able to cover the wider areas and reach out to the opponents who are trying to attack down the wing. So you guys can up this if it's a little bit too narrow, that's also fine, but yeah, it's not really a specific number that you have to use. Now moving on to the depth, I actually use this on 72 with this formation. Now this is super aggressive, and the reason I do this is so the defensive line often plays an offside trap. This is so we can catch out the opponents that are trying to play the through balls and then regain possession quickly, and it just means we're going to be able to win the ball higher up the pitch so we can really apply that pressure. So 72 depth, super useful when you're trying to score those goals, and it works very well with the pressure tactics. Now moving on to build-up play guys, I still suggest using this on balance because it is the most consistent in the game. So by having this on balance, it means we can vary how we build up. So sometimes we can play a little bit quicker, other times we can be a little bit slower, because although we want to use this formation when we want to score goals, it's important not to use something like fast build up because it restricts you to always forcing the play, which might not always be the best option. Balanced is just the way to go as you have more control, and it suits all types of FIFA 23 gameplay. What I mean by this is FIFA 23 gameplay is obviously very inconsistent. Sometimes it can be fast gameplay, other times it can be slower. So balance just works best for all of those. Moving on to chance creation, I suggest using direct passing. This is because it's the most meta option. It will make your attacking players bunch up against the defenders, so you can do those really overpowered 1v1 isolation plays. It also means your players will make the extra movements in the box, so you can get that extra pass off to guarantee those goals. Some people don't like direct passing, and that is fine, and if you're one of those people, you can use something like forward runs, which will push your team very far into your opponent's half, but just beware, if you lose the ball using this, you are in a lot of trouble. And moving on to the attacking width, I like to have this on 45. This is so we can primarily attack in a narrow way because this is a narrow formation, but at the same time it's not too narrow to the point where our players are like sat on top of each other, and yeah, we don't want it like super wide either, otherwise it becomes a wide formation, and that is not really what we want. So 45 kind of gives us a nice balance where it's primarily narrow, but we still have a little bit of width to it. Now moving on to players in box, I like to have this on 6. This is so I can get some players into the box to create those chances, of course. Like, we do want to get as many players in there as we can with it being safe, but we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where if we lose the ball, we're completely screwed. You know, some people like to put this all the way when they need a goal, but I still don't really suggest it, because if you don't score from that chance, you've basically completely thrown the game away. So 6 has just been nice and balanced. As for corners and free kicks, I have these both on 1 because there is a corner kick routine that I use which requires both of these to be on 1. Link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now moving on to the plays you want to use guys, in the 2 striker positions I like to go for a balance between the 2. So I like to have one more creative player on one side and then a more finisher poacher player on the other side. This is so we've got like a creator finisher dynamic and we just get more out of the strikers. If we just use 2 out and out strikers, we're very limited in what we can do. We're limited to just playing through balls and crossing because the players do not have the ability to actually control the ball and make things happen. By having a creative player and a finisher player, we're able to mix up the attacks a little bit and use the creative player to switch up the play a little bit more. So yeah, that's just something I like to do. You guys don't have to do it if you don't want. Now moving on to the cam, guys, I suggest going for a nice technical player, somebody that is agile, somebody that has got good dribbling and shooting as well as passing, because this is like the main playmaker in the team. You need somebody that is really good in that all-round attacking game, otherwise you're going to struggle to make things happen. If you use somebody that is clunky or somebody that has no attacking ability, you're going to struggle, because yeah, the whole attack basically goes through this cam a lot of the time, so it's important that you use a good cam. And moving on to the left centre mid, I like to go for a more box-to-box style player. This is somebody that is going to attack and defend, so if you can get it, a high work rate is super beneficial as you get the maximum contribution in attack and defense, but just make sure that this player has really nice well-rounded stats. Moving on to the middle centre mid, I suggest going for a more defensive minded player. This is somebody that's going to stay back and really add defensive security, because although this is an attacking formation, it's still important that we have a balance in the team where we've still got some defensive players, otherwise it's going to completely fall apart if we lose the ball. So try and get somebody with a medium high work rate in this position if you can, but if not, just go for somebody with really good defensive stats. Now moving on to the right centre mid, you have a bit of an option. You can either use like another box-to-box player or another defensive player if you want, or you can do what I do where I just put an actual attacker in this position. You can kind of do whatever you want here, so I'm not really going to judge, but just be aware, like whichever type of player you use is going to affect the instructions on this player, because if you're using a defensive player, you're not really going to want them to go flying forward and getting into the box, because it's not what they're good at. Now moving on to the fullbacks, I like to go for a balance between the two. In the left back position, I go for a more attacking minded fullback in Roberto Carlos. This is somebody that will commit to the attack for us to add that extra width. And then in the right back position, I like to go for a more defensive minded player in Cafu. This is somebody that maybe lacks that on the ball technical ability, but he's really good defensively. It's not something you have to do, it's just something I would suggest maybe. As for the centre backs and the keeper, these just need to be as good as you can get them. There's not much to say about them. Now moving on to the player instructions, guys, on the more creative striker, I just have him on stay central and mixed attack. We have him on stay central because we don't want him drifting off into the wide areas. He is one of the strikers, so we do need him to be in the central areas where he can, you know, really get where we can get the most out of this player. If he's drifting out wide, he's not really going to be too useful. We also have him on mixed attack because we don't just want him to run in behind all the time, as he can be a creative player. So mixed attack means sometimes he'll sit a little bit deeper so he can get more involved in the build-up play. Other times he might run in behind. It just means we get more out of this player. Now moving on to the right striker, my more finisher poacher striker, we have him on stay central and get him behind. We have him on stay central for the same reasons as the left striker, where we need him to be in the central positions, so he's always in the correct areas where the striker should be. And we also have this player on getting behind, so he's always looking to make those runs to get the best chances possible. This player's sole purpose is to be there to finish off those chances, so we really want him to be there so he can actually score those goals. If we have him on mixed attack, sometimes we won't make the runs, which is not what we want for an actual finish. Now moving on to the cam, I actually completely leave him alone. This is because I don't really want to restrict this player. I leave him on completely default settings, so he just has a bit of a free roll. Yeah, there's really not too much to say about the cam. I just completely leave him alone. Now moving on to the left centre mid, the more box-to-box style player, we have him on default settings and cover centre. We have him on default settings because he is a box-to-box player, so we don't want to restrict him all that much. Having him on the default settings means he's able to do a bit of everything. The only important thing is that we have him on cover centre, so he does cover those central areas, which is really important for pressing the opponent. Now moving on to the middle centre mid, we have him on stay back while attacking and cover centre. The reason we have him on stay back is because he is a more defensive minded centre mid, so we do want him to stay back, and then we have him on cover centre, so he is covering those central areas. Moving on to the right centre mid, depending on what type of player you use here, it depends, it will change what instructions you use. So because I'm using an actual attacker here, I have him on get forward. Now the reason we have him on get forward is because he is an attacker, so we do want him to go forward. If you have a more defensive minded player, you might want to have him on stay back while attacking, or if you have another box to box player, you might just want to put him on balanced attack. The only thing that I would say is important is to have him on cover centre, so he does cover those central areas when we don't have the ball. Now moving on to the fullbacks, I go for a balance between the two, like I said. So the left back, I have him on balanced attack and overlap. So we have him on balanced attack and overlap because he is a more attacking minded fullback, so we do actually want him to go forward. We also have him on the overlap run type, so he's always looking to add extra width to our attack because it is a narrow formation, and sometimes we need that wider option to either retain possession or, you know, to actually break through the opponent. Moving on to the right back, my more defensive minded fullback, I have him on stay back and overlap. So we have him on stay back, so we always at least have 3 defenders back, so we're as defensively sound as we can be. And then we also have him on overlap, so if I do trigger a run forward with him with L1 or whatever, he will make the overlapping runs to add extra width. As for the centre backs and the keeper, these are on default settings and I do not touch them. Yeah guys, that is my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-3-1-2. If you have enjoyed or found it useful, please be sure to drop this video a thumbs up, sub to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.